of December. We now come to the Opposition Day motion in the name of the Leader of the Opposition. Ms Seema Malhotra to move.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Today's debate is an incredibly important debate, but it is a shame that we have to hold it at all. It is deeply disappointing for the 3 million families across the UK set to lose an average of £1,300 from next April that the government has not taken the opportunity to step back, do the right thing and rethink these unfair proposals. These unfair proposals, Madam Deputy Speaker, that they omitted to mention in their manifesto. And indeed today, we're given another chance to stop the changes in the Welfare Reform and Work Bill Committee, they chose to vote against. Last night we heard the latest arguments in favour of these cuts, which is already backfiring. The government seeks to make this choice a binary choice between cutting the incomes of the working poor and funding nurses, when in fact many of those in receipt of tax credits include our nurses, teaching assistants, care workers, civil servants and so many others who work day and night to keep our public services and our economy moving. I will give way.
See, the decision to seek to reverse these reforms is an important one. When was she made aware of it? On your side, on the Labour side. When?
I don't even know that I need to respond to that, Madam Deputy Speaker. It's seeking to trivialise this debate, absolutely trivialise this debate. We've been very clear about what we would do, and we are calling on the government and his side today, as his constituents watch him today and say who is he standing up for, his constituents or his party. I will make some more progress and then I will give way, Madam Deputy Speaker. In fact, these cuts will also hit the self-employed and those who run our local businesses. And it is bizarre, Madam Deputy Speaker, for the government to justify taking £1,300 off each family by highlighting how much more they've already taken before in tax credits. Today it has become even clearer that the government has chosen to balance the books on the backs of the poor. And what the Chancellor has done is to make this debate What the Chancellor has done is to make this debate about taking from the non-working poor or the working poor, rather than a choice about recognising that in tough economic times it is fairer that those who have more should contribute more. And I will give way to the honourable gentleman first.
The £1,300 figure that she has just quoted is an average, and for many working people in my constituency, they're going to get clobbered by a lot more than £1,300 a year. But isn't the really serious point here that it was only April this year that we had a Prime Minister on the TV in the studios saying he would not cut tax credits? Absolutely right.
My honourable friend is absolutely right. And it's not just saying on that one occasion that the government has changed their mind or not told the truth. The government has not told the truth step by step on this measure since they first introduced this in the budget. They have tried to hide the impact on hard-working families across Britain, and he's absolutely right. The £1,300 is an average, and many families are set to lose much more. I will give way to the honourable gentleman.
I thank the honourable lady for giving way. The honourable lady will be aware that the Conservative manifesto did make very clear there would be £12 billion of welfare savings, so it was clearly flagged. But would the honourable lady explain to the House that if she opposes this measure, where would she find the savings? Which other benefit would she cut, or which tax would she rise?
Perhaps the honourable gentleman needs to talk to the Prime Minister about why he said on Question Time during the election that he would not be cutting tax credits. So I think that's a conversation for him to have with the Prime Minister, and I will give way to the honourable lady.
Well, the honourable member opposite talks about the Conservative manifesto. It can't have outlined that 689,000 carers are potentially going to be affected by this. Carers who care 35 hours a week and then try to work 16 hours on the national minimum wage. They will be hit by this. What do members opposite have to say about that?
Absolutely.
My honourable friend makes her point incredibly well. It is those that are working so hard to support us in every sphere, our public services and the economy, who are going to be hit the hardest by this move. And I hope that the government today will change their mind. Madam Deputy Speaker, I will continue to make some progress before I take further interventions. Now, the Chancellor may seek to say that what he wants is a low welfare, low tax, high wage economy. Well, it may come as a surprise that of course we all do. But what the Chancellor says and what he does are two different things. He makes the decision to cut tax credits at the same time, I will in a moment, at the same time as cutting income tax and inheritance tax for some of the wealthiest in our society. And we know that in the last Parliament, his failure to grow wages not only led to a drop in living standards, but also meant that tax receipts were lower than they would otherwise have been. In addition, as the Institute for Fiscal Studies has highlighted, welfare spending was virtually unchanged in the last Parliament because of the growth in tax credits payments and the explosion in housing benefits payments caused by this low-wage economy. Indeed, the number of people earning less than the living wage has risen by 45% since 2009. So the government might seek to hide what it is doing and make this debate about the Labour Party, but it is a debate about the quality of life for millions of families working hard to make ends meet. I will give way.
I'm grateful to the Honourable Lady for giving way. Can I give her another opportunity? If she were to reverse these reforms, how would she pay for it? Would she cut taxes? Would she cut spending? Or would she simply borrow more money?
Perhaps the honourable gentleman hasn't read any blogs, he hasn't listened to any media in the last 2 days where we have been in the media repeatedly. We've explained very clearly we would do that through long-term growth, we would do that through long-term growth, making sure we invest in high skills and increase
Order! Seema Malhotra.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker, and I hope that the honourable gentleman heard my answer. And perhaps he will also be wondering, his constituents will be asking whether he has heard them, because I am sure that they will be wondering who he is going to be standing up for today. I will give way in a moment if I can just make some more progress. And it is shocking that the government continue to avoid telling the truth about these changes, including the Prime Minister, to whom I wrote last week to clarify his comments that after all the government's changes, a family where one earner is on the minimum wage will be £2,400 better off. He has yet to be clear about how he reaches this conclusion and how many families will gain as he suggests, or what assessment he makes of analysis by the Institute for Fiscal Studies, Resolution Foundation, Barnardo's and so many others who are against these changes today. The Chancellor also either chose not to do or not to publish an impact assessment of these changes for the Commons, a move criticised in no uncertain terms by the Social Security Advisory Committee. There's only two ways to interpret that. They either don't want to know or they don't want to tell.
No.
I will give way.
I thank my honourable friend for giving way. My honourable friend talks about the impact of these changes. Let me give her just one simple example from my constituency in Walthamstow of a working mum who, when her tax credits were delayed, we had to refer her to a food bank because this was literally the difference between being on the breadline and having bread. Does my honourable friend agree with me that that change is going to happen across the country to working people if this goes ahead?
Yes.
My honourable friend is absolutely right, and she highlights the impact of the government's appalling administrative processes as well on our constituents, and the way that they are left trying to make ends meet and then actually needing to go to food banks. Over 60% of the use of food banks has been due to benefits and benefits administration issues. I will give way.
For the honourable member giving way. The honourable lady asked in an intervention whether we were listening to the media, and I listened to an interview on Radio 4 this morning that the honourable member gave, and she only gave two examples of changes that she would make to the tax system, and they were on inheritance tax and raising the tax threshold to 50p. In the circumstances where that would raise for 2017 to 18 only 270 million, I asked the honourable member, where is she getting the other 420 billion?
I thank the honourable member for her comments, and perhaps she will also want to answer the question about what she's doing for the 6,000 300 families in her constituency who are going to be affected by these changes. And perhaps she will also want to talk to those on her side who have actually raised very serious concerns about it, including Lord Tebbit in the other place.
You're not listening.
The government has chosen. The government chose before the debate on the statutory instrument in September either not to do or not to publish an impact assessment of these changes for the Commons in order to have that available for the debate. And the honourable member opposite seemed to suggest as well that they had done this, when clearly they hadn't. And the distributional analysis submitted by the Chancellor in the end to the Secondary Legislation Scrutiny Committee in the other place last week has been described by the honourable member for Birkenhead, who is the chair of the DWP Select Committee, as a sleight of hand and an attempt to bamboozle. I will make a little bit more progress, then I will give way. It is worth also just reminding honourable members exactly what the government proposes to do in these changes. Firstly, to effectively halve the threshold at which claimants start to see their tax credits award reduced or tapered away from $6,420 per year to $3,850. And secondly, increasing the rate at which their award is tapered away to zero. This means that for every pound earned above this threshold, their award will be tapered away by 48 pence. Previously, the rate was 41 pence. House of Commons figures show that a family with 2 children and 2 parents earning the minimum wage will see a fall in their income of over £1,800 next year. By the end of this Parliament, this family will have lost a devastating £7,700. I will go on.
Thank you, my friend, for giving way. Would she agree with me that this amounts to nothing less than a penalty for those in work, a work penalty, which is typical of this government?
She is absolutely right. This is a party that claims they are there for the workers, and what they are doing is going against everything that those hard-working families are doing to make ends meet. And it is time today that they rethink what they are doing and stand up for those that they pretended to stand up for at the time of the election. I will give way in a moment. In addition, a family with 1 earner on the minimum wage will be over £1,500 worse off next year, almost £7,000 worse off in the total course of this Parliament. Now, the claim we have heard most, you might ask that question, the claim we have heard most is that working families shouldn't be concerned because the minimum wage will see significant increases in the next few years. But as the IFS has made abundantly clear, these claims that this will close the gap are arithmetically impossible. Right. As Paul Johnson, the Institute for Fiscal Studies Director, summed up, he said the key fact is that the increase in the minimum wage simply cannot provide full compensation for the majority of losses that will be experienced by tax credit recipients. Unequivocally, tax credit recipients in work will be made worse off by the measures in the budget on average. He's absolutely right on that, and I hope that the government will make that decision. Today. Now, the IFS also find that as a result of all the tax and benefits changes in the summer budget, by 2020, households with incomes in the 2nd, 3rd and 4th deciles will be worse off by £1,250, £860 and £530 respectively. Indeed, the Resolution Foundation's recent report showed that these moves are likely to result in over 200,000 more children being pushed into poverty, at a time when the Welfare Bill is effectively erasing Labour's Child Poverty Act from 2010, the duty in it to eradicate child poverty by 2020, as well as the measures to monitor child poverty. And perhaps an honourable member opposite would like to perhaps ask a question on this of their own front bench. I will give way to the honourable gentleman. He's been very patient.
The honourable lady for giving way. She will know that when the tax credit system was created, it cost £4.4 billion to administer. This year it will cost £30 billion. Will she now admit that the only credible welfare system is an affordable welfare system?
And perhaps he will also ask what will happen to the 4,500 working families in his constituency set to see an average cut in their household income of over £1,300, and what impact that could have on whether they will keep their home, be able to put food on the table, or be able to afford clothes for their children. And I suspect that he will have a lot to answer for in his constituency. Indeed, 1 million single parents in work are set to be £1,000 a year worse off, and 1.5 million married women will be £600 poorer. And Madam Deputy Speaker, I will in a moment. And Madam Deputy Speaker, these cuts will also hit the self-employed on tax credits. Since 2010, self-employment has grown at a rate of twice the overall employment, and we know that the self-employed earn 40 to 50% less on average than those in regular employment. I will in a moment. This weekend's Observer included the case of somebody who is self-employed in Manchester, who expects to see his tax credits reduced to virtually nothing from next April. And I hope the Minister, in his response today, will be straight about what these changes also mean for the self-employed. I will give way to the honourable gentleman.
Constituency neighbour for giving way. We've had an impressive array of statistics, but has she got one proposal in which to reduce the deficit? Just one proposal?
That is absolutely incredible. I mean, we have said this in the media, we've said this in articles. I don't need to keep going over that ground, but he might want to answer. He might want to answer his constituents, where 3,000 families are going to be hit by these changes. 3,000 families in his constituency. 3,000 families in his constituency who are going to be affected by these changes. And also whether he is going to describe to all those institutions who have done hard research on these matters, because the government has chosen to do no impact assessment, that what they have described is an array of statistics. This is a debate about people's lives, and he should be standing up for his constituents today, just as members on this side will be doing in the voting lobby tonight.
Seema Malhotra.
Now, Madam Deputy Speaker, it is also clear that the government's own side is now in disarray. Lord Tebbit, the Honourable Member for Uxbridge, the Honourable Member for Telford, others now calling for reforms or for the Chancellor to think again. The Honourable Member for Halton and Halton Price.
For giving way. On that point that she just raised, does she agree with me that taxpayers' money should be targeted at those most in need and not used to routinely top up low pay?
I thank the Honourable Lady for that comment. I think it actually represents a misunderstanding of what tax credits are actually there to do and to help with. And I hope that her government will be more successful in this Parliament in seeing wages continue to increase to hopefully a level where people start to come off tax credits, because they actually haven't had a very good record to date with the number, as I have mentioned as well before, that the number of those who are on less than the living wage has risen by more than 45% since 2009, and I will give way.
I'm grateful to my friend, because what we've heard today already from the interventions from the party opposite is that they've conceded the argument on this. It started that low-paid workers were going to be better off. Britain needs a pay rise. Britain's going to get a pay rise. They've conceded that argument now. It's all about choices and how tough it's got to be for these people in order to balance the books. They've lost the argument.
My honourable friend is absolutely right. I think that as far as the public are concerned as well, they've lost the argument on this, and I think it is now going to be time for their constituents to make sure that they support the changes today that we are proposing, and otherwise hold them to account at the next election. Indeed, the Honourable Member for Halton and Halton Price has described has described the use of a statutory instrument as an attempt to avoid scrutiny, and said on the 6th of October, the government has to balance the books, but the burden shouldn't be on the poorest. I hope this doesn't turn out to be our poll tax. Even the Bow Group Perhaps the Bow Group speaks for several on the other side who may not be actually able to stand up and intervene today. Even the Bow Group has come out and said tax credit cuts could damage Britain's entrepreneurial economy and the Conservative Party's claim to be the Workers' Party. Indeed, I will give way to the Honourable Lady.
Thank you very much for giving way. And I would say that the Honourable Member is making a very powerful case. In my constituency, Brighton Pavilion, over 4,500 families are going to be affected, but they're going to be particularly affected because of the sky-high private sector rents as well. Does she agree that people are going to be particularly hard hit, where this combines, these cuts combine, with the fact that governments haven't taken action in the private sector to bring down rents?
The Honourable Lady is absolutely right. Actually, what this also shows is that these cuts are being made without any recognition of the rising rents, cost of living matters that are actually affecting household budgets. And you cannot do one move without actually thinking about the impact that's coming through the impact on family budgets, particularly from rents. I will continue for a moment and then I will give way. Indeed, new House of Commons Library analysis that we have published today shows that at least 0.5 billion will be lost to the London economy if tax credits cuts come into effect. That will hit nearly 410,000 low and middle income working families in London. And in my own borough of Hounslow, 13,500 working families will be affected, and the local economy will be hit by around £17.5 million worth of reduced purchasing power if these cuts come into effect. And I will give way to the Honourable Lady.
I thank the Honourable Member for giving way. And I know from many conversations I've had with Honourable Members from the benches opposite that you agree with me that aspirations are key importance. I was on tax credits before coming to this place, and I also benefited from further education. And I would plead with you to look at that. But does the Honourable Member agree with me that by cutting tax credits and by cutting further education, that actually you're preventing people like me from having those aspirations and pursuing?
My honourable friend makes a very, very powerful point, and also actually indicates through her own personal story how this is actually an anti-aspiration measure. This is stopping those families who are working very hard, not just for themselves, but to give their children a chance in the future, will be absolutely hit. And as they continue to struggle, so it will impact on those children, 200,000 more projected now to be moved into poverty. And so, Madam Deputy Speaker, I'm conscious that many more will want to speak in the debate today. And so, in closing, I want to say that this is a move that is set to hit the poorest the hardest. The Prime Minister is fond of saying that he supports those who work hard and do the right thing. His Conservative election manifesto said the British character is renewed every day by the millions who work hard, raise their families, care for those who need help and who do the right thing and make this country what it is. He said we are fixing the economy so that everyone feels the benefit. Well, at the moment, it couldn't be further from the truth. Far from being the party of the common ground or the party of workers, this move has shown this government to be one that is no longer interested in even knowing how families are set to be hit by the choices that they are making. This decision is not just poor politics, but poor economics, with families now concerned what this impact will mean as they struggle with paying the rent or their mortgage or putting food on the table at a time when food bank use continues to rise. The problem of low pay in the UK persists, and these changes to tax credits are about to make things much worse. With 6 million people not earning enough to cover the basic costs of living, tackling in-work poverty is crucial, but not this way, by making matters worse and hitting those who need help the most. And the government chooses to bring these changes in without even a transition plan. And now, when crossbenchers and bishops start to express concern in the other place, Madam Deputy Speaker, we hear reports that Number 10 will threaten to suspend the other place if it tables and wins a fatal motion. There is a chance again for every member of this House to do the right thing and to stand up for their constituents, putting families in their constituency first and their party second. And I urge them to vote with us in the I lobby today.